Today we're going steampunk, baby. Hey guys, welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace. You can find me on Twitter at AKNacer. You can find me here on Phlearn 5 days a week. We're doing something really cool today. We're actually going to make a steampunk image. This was sent over by someone in the family, Lanique, and to be honest, I really didn't know what they meant by make this image look steampunk, so I looked it up, but I'm going to show you guys exactly what I would do in this case and kind of like how to draw references to get a certain type of look and then bring that into Photoshop. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is basically just what I did. I went over here to Google and typed in steampunk photography and basically just came up with these. And I can see what their draw is. There's a lot of really cool images here, and a lot of it is like really dark and kind of desaturated. So drawing from inspiration like this is just a really good way to kind of figure out what you actually want something to look like. So if someone says, oh, make this more steampunk, you know, now I know probably about what they mean. Some of these images in particular I really like. Really dark, kind of desaturated, but the lights are still there as well. So that's what we're going to be doing to Lanique's image. And yeah, I just wanted to show you guys kind of what, like, part of the process too, because this is an important part completely outside of Photoshop, learning to edit and things like that. Okay. So we're going to be making Lanique's image steampunk, and the first thing I want to do, I need to make it a lot darker, and we need to take some of the saturation out of the reds. So let's take the saturation out of the reds. I'm going to go to my adjustment layer. We're going to go to hue, saturation, and here I'm just going to choose our colors here. You can actually choose which color you want to desaturate. So we'll choose our reds, and then just to make sure I've got the right reds, I'm going to use my eye brush, or my eyedropper tool, and then click right there on her skin. So that's going to be the red that we're going to desaturate. So we're going to pull the saturation down, and I'm actually going to put my lightness up just a little bit. There we go. And that's going to kind of bring that a little bit lighter. Now I'm going to do some other things on top of that real quick, and we're going to go, because we made the skin a little bit lighter and we desaturated, sometimes when you do that, it loses like its natural highlight. So you have to like go back and add more highlight over top of that. So I'm going to go to select and then down here to color range. And on a new layer, I'm just going to select like a lighter color range. We're going to hit the preview here so I can actually see what I'm doing. And what I want is, you know, like kind of the highlight areas of our skin to be selected. Something like that. So I'm just literally clicking over here and I can see what's going to get selected. So we're going to hit OK, and then on the new layer, I'm just going to use my brush tool, and we're going to paint with white. There we go. And let me hit Command H so you guys can actually see what's going on. So painting with white over top of our skin is just going to help bring those highlights out. And that's really important, especially when you're like making everyone's skin, you know, overall quite a bit brighter. All right, I'm going to lower the opacity because it looks horrible like that. There we go. So we've made everything quite a bit brighter. We've taken some of the saturation out of her skin, and it still looks a little bit weird, but I think it's going to look good in just a minute. All right, we're ready for a new layer, and what I want to do here is I need to make everything a little bit darker, but I don't want to lose a lot of definition. So I'm going to grab my polygonal lasso tool, and we'll just choose to feather that by a couple pixels. And I'm actually going to try to like get our, there we go, get some of these shapes going so it actually makes sense, like how I'm going to be coloring these. All right, so we've got that shape, and basically, you know, I'm going to do this for each one of these shapes. I'm going to do it relatively quick, but we're going to just fill this with black. So Alt-Delete will fill with your foreground color, and we'll just deselect that one. And here on a new layer, we're going to go down, and there we go. And the reason I'm doing this is because light would actually fall off of these differently. So you wouldn't really want to color each one of them the exact same, because, you know, as light moves around a surface and things like that, it would just kind of affect how each one of these layers actually showed up. There we go. And this is just like generally where it's going to get colored. We still have to use a layer mask. All right. And on a new layer, I'm going to fill that with black. And on a new layer, we're just going to go all the way down here. And we're going to fill this one with black as well. All right. Very cool. So what I can do now is just kind of like lower the opacity of these layers, and I can do it, you know, in a way to where like they're getting darker and darker as we kind of like go around the curve. So it's, you know, not as dark up here, but this is going to get a little bit darker, and they're just going to be selected out individually like that. What you can do also, if you don't want to make, you can see how it just looks like a little bit desaturated. Like it doesn't look like light actually would work. And that's because usually you have to have highlights in your shadows as well. So just like we had to go back and bring our highlights in to the into the skin, you can do that with the shadows as well. You can do that with blend if, or you can do that with like selecting the color range. Let's see if we can do it with blend if. I'm gonna double click on this, and we're gonna go to alter option. I'm gonna click and drag over here to show some of the highlights here in the lights. All right, and that basically just makes this layer not visible where the highlights are on the underlying layer. There we go. And let's do the same thing to here. Cool. So you can see it just kind of like gives you a little bit more of a natural progression. And I'm going to take that away just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we're definitely getting quite a bit more of that dark look that we wanted. Let's just make a new layer here. And I'm just going to grab the brush tool now and just kind of paint dark over everything, starting from down here. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to double click on this layer and tell this now not to be visible where the underlying layer is lighter. And it should disappear from areas like her skin. There we go. So you can see it's showing up kind of like everywhere, you know, down towards the edge of the stairs, and not showing up where her skin is. We do have covered up areas as well. Like this area, we covered up part of her leg. So I'm just going to put a layer mask on that layer and make sure we don't select that as well. So her boot, we want, you know, her boot and her leg, we kind of want showing through everything else. All right, and the same thing with this layer here. So we're really doing quite a lot. I mean, we're trying to do a whole image rather than just a technique in this episode, but you can see that like by doing this technique, it's kind of like a relatively similar thing that we're doing over and over and over again. All right, and this is like, remember that layer where we added the skin? If you wanted to bring that on top of everything that went dark, there we go. You can kind of see how that looks there. Yeah, I think it looked okay back on the bottom there. All right, and each one of these layers is going to need a layer mask too. And again, the only reason I did these separately is so we would have like the geometry of the, you know, of the actual structure, and I could kind of like bring it in as a as different layers and treat each one of these layers a little bit differently. All right, cool. Now we've made those a bit darker. I'm still gonna just grab an adjustment layer, and we're gonna go down to curves, and I'm just gonna grab all the curves in my entire image and just bring it down, because we really do want this to be pretty dark. On my layer mask, we're just gonna paint with a black paintbrush right over where our subject is. Some detail and things like that here as well. Maybe, you know, bring in some detail here. There we go. Okay, we have a line right there that's kind of weird, and that's this guy right here, so that's going to need a layer mask on that as well. And we can see we're definitely looking a lot more moody and a lot more this like steampunk type of image. All right, if you wanted to do this a little bit more precisely, you could just grab like a, you know, you could make a selection from your subject to start, and then you wouldn't have to, you know, go in here and kind of layer mask all of it away every time you wanted to add another layer for effect. So that would just kind of make it, it would take more time up front, but in the end, it would probably wind up saving a little bit of time. There we go. And then now I can just kind of like adjust each one of these layers individually. But the other cool thing, and you know, Lanique, I'm really happy you asked to do this image like this too, is because like this is, you can do this kind of like steampunk style, which, you know, makes everything kind of like this dark, moody type image. But the cool thing is you can use it like we've done here in a way to help draw attention to your actual subject. And like you can see the before, let me show you the before and after real quick. Okay, the before image, it lacked a little bit of focus. Alter option, click on the background layer. It lacked a little bit of focus. It seems a little bit flat. And now here in the after, it really does kind of like sculpt the image out quite a bit better, and we've got light coming in there. I might even exaggerate that a little bit more. So I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer, and we're going to bring the brightness up on that. All right, and just kind of, I'm going to invert that layer, and then I'm just going to paint in white at like 20%. You know, here a little bit on the steps, maybe here on her jacket, things like this. So this is definitely like a stylized image. You know, if you're not going for something stylized, don't do this, because it's not, you know, I wouldn't do like a senior VP portrait or anything like this. This is definitely good, and it really helps, you know, fit with like the clothing as well, like making sure that the clothing works for the image. And that's a huge part of it. Is I wanted to do this image partly because I think it's really cool, but also it makes sense that it would be edited this way. You know, like the image already says, like, you know, I should probably look like this type of image. So that makes sense, and it makes it easier to pull this sort of thing off. There we go. And I'm just adding a little bit more of that in there. So this is just a start. You could totally get in here and, you know, put textures and things like that on there. But I think this is pretty good for now. All right, how to edit a steampunk image on Phlearn. We've never done anything like this before, and I think it came out great. So Lanique, awesome suggestion. If you guys want your image edited on Phlearn, be sure to leave it. You can just go to connect, and then you can hit suggest an episode, and you guys can leave your image, which is awesome. We are having a huge week at Phlearn. Tomorrow we're recording the first part of our DVD series, which is going to be released in a couple of months, and I can't wait. We're going to be doing portraits tomorrow. We're going to be doing like crazy types of like huge effects images. I can't tell you too much about it, but you'll see it soon. And I'm really excited about it. It's going to be awesome. We're doing a lot of new stuff with the studio. We just put like a big collage up. I put that on the Facebook page as well. And we have a contest going on right now. Guys, thanks so much for watching Phlearn. I'll Phlearn you later. Facebook contest textures photos. I suck at that. The most likes wins the texture pack.